Hey, what's up, guys? Can you guys hear me?
Hello?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hello?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm just pretty much gonna wait for everybody else to join. I guess only 5 people have joined so far. Definitely should have somewhere around I'd say maybe 30. Um, yeah, so we'll just give it about 5 minutes for everybody else to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I recommend you have a piece of paper, pencil, um, and also I'm going to be going through Zillow. So I would recommend, it's not necessary, but I would recommend that you do have a device that could run Zillow. However, I get a ton of questions on whether I record these classes or not. These classes are recorded and will be sent to you guys as a whole. So if there's for whatever reason you guys get stuck and you don't really want to ask questions because you feel shy, which is totally okay. I understand all these all these classes are pre-recorded, or recorded as we're doing them. So yeah, you guys will have an extra recording of this. Yeah, so we'll get about 4 more minutes for everybody else to join, and we'll go from there. Alrighty, so for anybody new that just joined, I'm just giving it about 3 more minutes for everybody else to join. And if they don't end up joining for whatever reason, that's okay. I'm still gonna go ahead and start it either way. Like I did mention, this is gonna be a recorded class, so everybody in here will have this class available to them whenever you guys are feeling stuck. Yeah, so there's only 9 people in here. This has by far been the smallest class that I've been together with. Normally I do. I've been doing classes within 30 to 50 people. And it's pretty great so far. Along the way, if you guys do have any questions, go ahead and feel free to interrupt me or kind of way. I normally ask either way if anybody has any questions. Kind of like every 10 to 15 minutes. So I'll definitely ask you. But if for whatever reason you need a question answered because you're not understanding where we are, I will go ahead and be more than grateful to do so. Yeah, so we'll give it about 2 more minutes just for everybody else to join in, and we'll go ahead and start this thing up.
Alright. Okay.
Where are you gonna send the recording to?
think he said he's just gonna text it to us. Like
Oh,
send the link. Yeah, I'm not sure
My
though.
bad. My mic was muted. Yeah, but he pretty much got it spot on. I'll go ahead and send you guys a link pretty much about an hour, hour and a half before this or after this class ends. I'll go ahead and send you guys a link. So yeah, unfortunately many people didn't join, which I mean, that's kind of a little bit up to them. Pretty much everybody knew what time we had class and everything. I always send the link out about 15 to 20 minutes beforehand. However, I do know some of you. I kind of let you know kind of last minute, and thank you for joining on here. I was just able to kind of come up with a new strategy to get everybody in, teach everybody, but also give everybody that mentorship at the same time. That way, it'll just kind of be easier and more time efficient for all of us. So yeah, first things first, guys, and I'm gonna start off by sharing my screen with you guys. Just real quick, everybody hears me fine, correct? I just want to make sure of that before I do start.
yeah.
Yeah, you good.
Perfect. All right, yeah. So I'll go ahead and share my screen with you guys. If you guys want to open up Zillow or whatever you're on, either on the phone or if you're on a computer, whichever one would be fine. They're pretty much the same exact um, software. Either or. You guys can see my screen too, correct? Just making sure.
Yes.
Yeah, you good.
Cool, awesome. So first things first, if you're on your computer or on your phone, really, you open up Zillow and it's gonna prompt you to search something up. Here you're just gonna search up whichever market you're in. That being Oklahoma, that being as you can see, I've been in the Oklahoma City. That being Kansas, Kansas State, Kansas City, Missouri, whatever you're gonna search up, whatever market you're gonna search up. This is where you're definitely gonna go ahead and do that. So first things first, I'm just gonna go ahead and do Oklahoma. As you can clearly see, I've been in Oklahoma just based off of my recent searchings. But let's go ahead and do that. First things first. Hold on, this is gonna be at nothing. All right, so yeah, so typically this is what you're gonna see. You're gonna see a whole bunch of listings. They're all in red dots. Whether you're on your phone or you're on your computer, either one, you're still gonna see them. A couple of differences, nothing too different between both of them, but there is some slight similarities. And if you're on your phone, you'll actually go ahead and see that. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and come up here to where it says for sale. If you're on your phone, it also says for sale. I'm actually following along on my personal phone, so I can kind of be there with you guys as well. So you're gonna click for sale, and you're gonna click down on this little I'm not on this little arrow here. For you guys, I'm pretty sure it'll all be filtered here, so all of these will be selected. Just deselect all of them and make sure it says by owner or by agent. That's gonna be the first thing that you want to do first step. Um, it's I guess you could say wholesale and real estate really. The reason I use Zillow specifically, if somebody was wondering, is because of the fact that it's free. It's very user friendly. It's pretty much straight to the point, self-explanatory, and I guess again the big one is that it's free. So we can literally do everything here from step A to through step Z in Zillow, as well as Redfin, and also on I've seen on Realtor.com as well. Those are the three. Once we have this filtered here, we're gonna select go to price range. Mine says any. Yours might say price. Yours might say something different up here up top. But you're gonna come here, and depending on which market, you don't have to do this, but depending on which market you are, and kind of the due diligence that you do on the market, the research you do on it, you're gonna see how much properties are going for in the area that are a little bit more older or run down. I know specifically in Oklahoma that the prices for the properties are at about 100,000. Distressed properties that is, max. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my max to 100,000. Again, if you're following along with me, definitely go ahead and do that. However, though, if you're in Kansas State or excuse me, yeah, in your Kansas State, Missouri, wherever you are, just make sure you do your due diligence and before you filter out the price. And again, remember, the price doesn't have to be filtered out. Already, we could see just based off of those two filters, or actually based on a third one that's already kind of set up here. But yeah, so we'll just go ahead and go to the fourth filter, which would be the home type. Just make sure you unfilter everything except houses and multifamily. You could wholesale lots and lands or townhomes or apartments or things of that sort, homes of that sort, but we're not focusing on that right now. I do suggest you start off working off with the home just because it's a lot easier. The process is a lot more simpler. Yeah, and it's just it's less headaches for everybody. After you have these three filters down, you should have your map looking like mine. If you're following along or if you're in a different market, you'll see that a bunch of these red circles that were once here have now disappeared. Why? Because of our filters. Does anybody have any questions so far? Based on the, kind of what I filtered and kind of what I've been showing so far.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
All right, so you said you know that distressed property is like up to $100K.
Uh-huh.
How do you know that, like, for certain?
I just know that, me personally, because I've worked in Oklahoma City a lot. So I know that properties in general are going to range anywhere from, really 10,000. I've seen them all the way up to 100,000 is where the distressed range level is at. And again, the only reason I know that is because I've worked in the market and I know the market, which is really the only reason. And the only way you're going to find out is if you work within the market and you're constantly, kind of seeing and studying. The more you do real estate wholesale, the more you understand the markets and the more you understand how much you should be paying for properties. But yeah, that's kind of how you would know. Typically, if you don't know, it's totally fine to go ahead and just leave this alone. You'll still get obviously a lot more properties here, but um, you'll also get the distressed ones mixed with them. The only difference, you're gonna have to just kind of pick them out. But just to save us some time, I'm gonna set it to 100,000. Again, totally not necessary.
All right.
Yeah. So any more questions real quick before I go ahead and move on? If I am talking too fast, please let me know too. The reason I tend to do that is just because of the fact that we only have 2 hours in here. I know it sounds like a long time, but they really go by extremely quickly. So I kind of try to get everything out there. Not, and I don't want to cram you guys either. So I don't want to, I kind of try to space everything out. That's why, the 2 hours takes so long. But yeah, guys. So if nobody else has any more questions, we're gonna move on to step number 2.
Do you think that this like is like, for example, if it's my first time actually getting on a class with somebody, is it too much information for me to take, like me not knowing much?
Oh, totally not. This is why I teach this class. This is whether you're advanced or you're a beginner starting off, you're gonna learn something regardless.
Okay.
And so yeah, if you're starting off, anybody in here who's a beginner, definitely make sure you're taking notes and stuff like that. But this is going to
Yeah.
be definitely the class that's gonna be really the firm foundation to your whole successful career, so to
Okay.
say.
Thank you.
No problem. Alrighty, guys. So yeah, the next step would literally just, if you're on your phone, you would unfortunately have to go through each one of these individual red dots and kind of just click through them until you see a distressed property. I could already see a couple of them here. Well, I don't know if they're distressed yet, right? Kind of just by seeing the outside. This one has no pictures, which is not a red flag at all. We kind of just need to ask for them at this point. Kind of just look at the price point. Please do not. There's already we can see that there's people living here, so that's going to play a big factor on whether or not we choose to wholesale this property. So yeah, I think we'll just keep moving on since there's tenants in this property. Now, again, this isn't another red flag. This just I would recommend if you're going to be working with a property that has tenants or people living in there and they have a contract or a lease. I would recommend you wait until you at least get your first wholesale deal done. That way, you know the process, and then you can kind of start adding on a couple of tenant deals. There isn't such a big major difference. The only difference is you would have to be working with cash buyers who are typically comfortable with working with tenants in a property and that know kind of how to put eviction notices out and things of that sort. For now, we're gonna move on to the next property. And yeah, you just keep searching around. This property is a good property, and we're gonna use it today for an example. The reason why is actually I just did a wholesale deal. The closing date is on the 24th. Chris, or excuse me, no, it was gonna be the 24th, but the title company was closed. So next Tuesday, so literally exactly a week from now is closing date on a property I did on Granger Street. Here's a good property. I haven't gotten in for it yet. If you guys are interested, there's a free lead. This is definitely a hot market to be in. Obviously we can see that the property is distressed. I mean, just by kind of looking at the picture here, we can see that, this is carpet and this carpet is terribly stained. Popcorn walls on the ceiling, meaning it's old ceiling, cracking in the roofing up here, this area here. Obviously, it's either gonna need new drywall and new paint or just new paint. Um, Bottom line is this home is definitely a distressed property. This home is definitely a property that's gonna need work and that's gonna need some upkeeping, right? So I mean, it's kind of all there really to see. This is what we're looking for in a property. You're looking for a property that's going to need work. Now, if this property was down to the studs, down to, bare guts, meaning only wood is showing, I wouldn't recommend you go after it for your first deal. Again, the reason why is because you kind of have to work with wholesalers, or excuse me, cash buyers that are experienced with those properties, and sometimes it could be hard to build connections with a cash buyer of that sort, which is why I recommend you kind of start off with properties like this that are all up, and that from what we know so far, all it's going to need is a quick rehab. We have the price of the property here. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom. These are going to be all important. This all important information we're going to need here for the future in a bit. The property address. We're going to want to check out the quick description. Excuse me. Let's see. Let's read it. Location. Investors, you will want to see this property. Great opportunity. Quiet street with many homes, completely renovated. Brick 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Perfect. Simple. Obviously, it doesn't mention how much work it's going to need, but it's going to need quite some work, and I'll show you guys how to make sure how to find how much it's going to need and all that. The first thing we want to do is search up the ARV. Why do we need to search up the ARV, and what it stands for? First of all, ARV stands for your after repair value. That means ARV means how much could we get for this property once it's been renovated. Now, there's a couple of ways you could do this. I'm going to show you guys a very easy way to do it. It's one of the ways that I actually use, pretty much on a daily basis, depending what software I'm using. But when I am using Zillow, I'm definitely using it. So first off, guys, I recommend you write this equation here. It's ARV times 70% minus repairs minus fees. So before you get caught up on what this equation means, let's go ahead and break it down. ARV, like I said, this is your after repair value, after renovation value, after reno value, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure that ARV means how much you could get price wise on a property after it's been rehabbed. So again, we have our after renovation value, and we need to find out how much I could get for this specific property after it's been rehabbed. So first thing I'm going to want to do is just zoom into it. As you can see, since I was just looking at it, the dot is green. So let's go ahead and zoom into that green dot. It does sort of disappear, but we kind of already ball point where it's at, and we can kind of just zoom into it. So far, is there any questions? Just wanted to make sure. Cool.
This
Alrighty.
is probably irrelevant for right now, but if we have to go, how are we gonna get the recording? And also, you said that we get to like contact you afterwards. What's the best way to contact you?
No, so I'll go ahead and contact every single one of you guys after. I'm actually gonna make a really big group chat with all of us in. The reason why I make these group chats is because I have seen a lot of success within my class when you guys are collaborating with one another. You guys all have the same goal. So it's really cool to see everybody collaborate and kind of the deals that come out and the help that comes out through there. However, to answer your question, yeah, I'm going to be making a group chat, and I'll send you guys all the links to all the documents that I'm using here today, as well as any graphs that I use, and links to this video are included too. So if you do have to go at an early time, don't worry, you will still have this whole teaching. And again, remember, you guys have my mentorship for a whole month, so questions could be asked for the whole month.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, guys, so as you can see here, we kind of moved into the area. There's a couple of key things I like to look at. First of all, is that I don't like to move through major streets. So really where I would be at for this kind of mile to half-mile radius is literally this. And you could draw in, I don't like to, but I'm just gonna be looking from here, from N Carlson Boulevard all the way down on Northwest 39th Street, back up North Pennsylvania, and to my right again. And so I'm pretty much just gonna be in this whole block here. And yeah, so first things first is I'm gonna undo my $100,000 price range property. As we can see, we get a bunch more properties that are being for sale, for sale up in the area. This I'm gonna leave the same because I do want to look for houses and multi-family homes. So that's what I'm looking at. For sale is the same. Price point is any. Perfect. So next thing is to zoom in a little bit closer. Again, you can see we still have a whole bunch of properties here in that area that we were in that are up for sale right now. So first things first, let's look across the street. We have this awesome 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. As you can see, this home has been very beautifully renovated. Definitely a property that I guess I would live in. It's nice, it's modern, it's up to date, definitely up to 2020 standards. This is a no-brainer, no explanation needed here. You guys can kind of just tell, you have the great flooring, you have the new painting, the new paint on the walls, the backsplash. Just the whole home is a whole renovation. And this property is going for 260,000. However, let's keep in mind that this property is a little bit bigger. It does have a 3 bedroom and a 2 bathroom. Our home it's quite a bit smaller than this one. So unfortunately, this wouldn't be a home that we would look for. Remember, when we're looking for ARV, we're looking for homes that are renovated, that have typically the same specs as our property. If we look back at our property real quick, it's a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 945 square feet. So we want to look for a property that's within this range here. So let's just keep our hunt going out there. And here we have a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 1,150 square feet. So we can see here, this home is slightly bigger. I'm assuming that extra bedroom really adds the extra square footage. However, this property could be very good for our ARV and finding out how much we could get for our property after it's been renovated. Now, keep in mind, this home is on the same street, I believe it's right across the street, maybe. That should be what it is. It's a brand new home, as we can see again. It's got new painting. The door's been repainted. New backsplash. I mean, this home just again looks beautiful, looks renovated, looks modern, up to date. Exactly what we're looking for. So we can see this home is going right now being sold for 200,000 on the market, around the same specs. So that's great. We have a good number to kind of start off our ARV with, which is 200,000. Let's kind of look at these properties. This property is too big. It's a 5 bedroom, 3 bathroom. Won't waste my time. Again, too big. This property is a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom. It's smaller than our home. It's not renovated. It's still a little bit outdated. Kitchen looks to be able to be renovated and make it look brand new again. Maybe has some new appliances. Don't know if that comes with the property. However, we can clearly see that this home has not been fully renovated yet. Now it's totally in livable conditions, but it's going for 140,000. It's smaller than our property, and it's not renovated. So we already know that we could get at least 140,000 or more for our property just right off the zip. Um, Perfect. So those are it's kind of two properties we looked at that are in the area. Now let's look at properties that have been sold in the area. Now let's see if properties are selling in this area and kind of see how we're doing in that area. Oh wow, and as you can see, there's a bunch of them. There's one filter that you want to do once you click sold, and let me tell you why. First, let me tell you what to do. Obviously, you're gonna want to go ahead and sold in the last, let's go 6 months. 6 months to a year, but really I kind of like to leave it at 6 months just because of the whole pandemic that's going on right now and things that are out of our control. So as we can see here, we have this 2 bedroom, 1 bath sold not too long ago. This one sold for $150,000. This is a great price for the property. It's pretty much like ours. Again, a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom. I actually see very similarities compared to that home that's just been renovated, actually, such as this fireplace and the kitchen. A couple of things that I see similar. So that's already great. This home was about 4 months back, so we can assume the price has gone up a little bit on the property since it was last sold. And yeah, guys, so this is going to be a great one to base our price on our property for. Definitely a great home to do that. And this one sold for 150,000. So we have a number of 200,000 and a number of 150,000. Let's go ahead and keep those numbers written down and in mind. Go ahead and do that here. And the reason why is we're gonna kind of find the average at the end of everything. So there's that one. We see we have this one for this one's a little bit too much. This is another 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom. Unfortunately, there's no picture, so at this moment, I'll go ahead and move on. Let me see if the description states anything. Yeah, so it doesn't really state anything, so I'll just go ahead and move on the property. This one sold for 185. This is a 2 bedroom, 1 bath again. Definitely remodeled home. As we can see, it's got those new darker modern colors. Again, all we're looking for right now is properties that have been renovated with about the same specs that have just been sold recently within the past 6 months. As we can see, this property just got sold a month ago and it got sold for 185,000. So we'll go ahead and write that down. We'll add another 185. Again, the reason why we're writing down is because we're going to go ahead and take the average of all of them at the end. So we have 3 properties so far, all out, adding up to 535,000. But let's keep looking around. We have a property that one's a little bit too big. Let's look at that one. off to 21. 283. Yeah, so we pretty much have 3 homes, which is a great number. Um, definitely more than enough for what we need. So let's go ahead and average those out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add 185K plus 150K plus 200K. That brings us to 535K. We're gonna divide that by 3 to find the average of all 3 properties. And that gives us a total price point of 178,000 or 180,000 to round up. That means that potentially, I could be, once this property is fixed up and renovated, it could go for about $180,000 on the market. Again, how did we find that? It was by averaging out these couple properties that are for sale at the moment and properties that have already been sold. So that's our first step to our equation. Our ARV is finding our ARV. And we simply did that again by finding properties that were renovated in the area that have just been sold or are being sold and averaged the numbers out. And it gave us 180,000. Does anybody have any questions so far on how I got that 180,000? Awesome, perfect. So the first thing we're gonna do is multiply by 70%. Now, why do we multiply by 70%? It's just a key rule that all wholesalers use. It's you never want to pay for more than 70% of the ARV of the after renovated value. Again, keep in mind our ARV was 180,000. 70% of that would be 126,000. The next step is going to be to go ahead and find repairs. Now I have a whole chart on repairs and what to do for repairs and all that. And I will go ahead and send it to you guys right after this meeting is over, because I'm going to make that big group chat. But the rule of thumb is typically when a property is under 1,500 square feet, when a property is under 1,500 square feet, a light renovation is going to cost you about 15,000. You can go ahead and write this down just to follow along with me, or you can just wait for the end. Again, you guys will have this video and this chart, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so for a light renovation with the property under 1,500 square feet, we're looking at about 15,000. With an average renovation, kind of new carpet, paint, kitchen, and bathroom, we're looking at around 30,000. And for a heavy renovation, pretty much you need everything gutted out, brand new on the inside. We're looking at anywhere from 60,000 to really anywhere just anywhere up from there. Here I can see that this property is going to need an average renovation. It's going to need a new kitchen. It's going to need new flooring, new paint. I'm assuming a new bathroom. There's no pictures of the bathroom, but just kind of based on how the whole property is looking, I'm going to assume it's going to need something, kind of average when it comes to renovation. Now, again, this home isn't down to the studs, so it isn't too much of a heavy renovation, but it definitely needs some work. Now, the more you look at properties, the better you're going to get at this. I know some of you guys are wondering like how I got 35,000. Was I a contractor? Or how I knew this? No, I'm not a contractor. I don't do any of this. It's just literally, guys, over practice and over time of you, kind of looking at properties and seeing what properties are doing in the market in the area. You're gonna kind of know how much you should be paying for renovations. Now, again, I am no contractor. I don't have any contractors in the family. Nothing like that is going on here. I just happen to have, been doing a bunch of practice and putting in the work, and that's the way you guys will, get that too. However, you will have that graph here soon. I can see that this property is going to need about $35,000 to $40,000 in repairs. Really, is what I can see. But I think we'll just round it out at about 40,000 because we don't know if potentially there could be something wrong on the walls that we can't see or anything like that. Now, we're not doing the repairs, guys. I get this question a lot. Is how do you get the money to do the repairs? How did you get the money to start to do repairs? We don't do the repairs. All we do is get the property under contract and flip the contract over. But we do have to kind of act like we are going to go ahead and do the repairs just so we can kind of see how much we're supposed to be paying for the property. Now here again, I can see that it's going to need about $40,000 in repairs. So remember, next step to our equation is simply going to be to subtract the repairs minus 40 grand in repairs. That brings us down to $86,000. Now, there's a couple of things that I can see here. Remember, we're not done with our equation just yet. This is second to last step. First thing that I see here is that our number here is 86,000 and they're asking 85,000. We're not too far off. We're actually a little bit over their price point so far, which is where we want to be at. And that means we're at a good number so far. Yeah, next step is gonna be to subtract our fees. Before we subtract our fees, does everybody know, or does anybody have any question on how I've been able to come up with this number of $86,000 here? Cool, perfect. So like I said, next is gonna be our fees. Now, how do you find fees? What is fees? Where do you get them from? So fees is all that means is how much you want to make on the property. So if you want to make, $10,000 on this property, all you would have to do is subtract 10,000. That brings it down, obviously, to 76,000. It just really depends on how much you want to make. Whoops. It really depends on how much you want to make. Typically, I recommend when you're starting off, you don't get too stingy about it, and go for about 5,000. Only reason is because it's gonna not only make you money, but it's also gonna take you a longer process, and you can't pay for the experience, which is the most important part. So it'll kind of secure you a contract, secure you an assignment because your numbers are making sense, and you kind of would just go from there. But always when you're starting off, I typically recommend that you have a that you kind of set your fees at about $5,000. So in this instance, since just to make it even number, we're gonna go 6,000. So we want to make our fee, we want to make $6,000 on this certain property. So all we're gonna do is subtract $6,000. That brings us down to $80,000. Now this is what's called our MAO, or our max allowed offer. 80,000 means this is the offer that we're gonna put in on this property, and in order for us to make $6,000 on it, we're gonna have to wholesale it for $86,000. So you see, we're essentially buying the contract for 80,000 and flipping it for 86,000. Now remember, we're not the ones that are buying the property. Our cash buyer is the one who is going to be paying the $86,000. 6,000 of which will go to us, 80,000 of which will go to the original seller. Now, does anybody have any questions up to this point of
Yeah.
tonight?
So is it true, like, the more that you ask as your fee, is there like a bigger chance of you closing that deal?
What do you mean? Could you ask that one more time, please? Or kind of.
Yeah. So like the less you make off of that deal, do you have a better chance of like closing it? Like, instead, if you are having like a $11,000 fee,
I see what you're saying.
do you have like
Yeah. So I don't. No, I'm actually gonna give you a solid no on that. And how much you make is how much you make, and that's all it is. It's not gonna stop you from making money. It's not gonna hinder you from closing your contract. Nothing like that. The only way I could see it hindering you is if the your cash buyer gets jealous on how much you're making. When you have those good deals, when you're making $30,000, $40,000 on a wholesale, that'd be the only thing that I could really see that something could hinder the process of you closing the contract. Now, if that's the case, that just means that the your cash buyer is just either has a really really bad heart, or just doesn't like to see other people succeed. And it definitely has happened, and it definitely probably will happen along your journey. However, those are just the hurdles you got to go over, and kind of kick it over to the side, and just kind of move on and find your next cash buyer. But for the most part, though, no. To answer your question, really, no. It's never happened to me. I've only heard of it happening, so it's pretty rare of it happening. But my thing is, where business can be made, business will be done. So if you're making business, if you're doing business, and your cash buyer is gonna get good profit off of this, and all numbers making sense, you shouldn't really have a problem closing.
For sure.
No matter on how much you make, yeah. Any more questions before moving on?
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead.
So how do you know if there's like any plumbing issues, or like just by asking them?
Right. So at that point, that's gonna be once we go ahead and make the initial call. I haven't got there yet. But yeah, to answer your question real quick, it's gonna be pretty much through calling them and figuring out what's really wrong with the property. Now remember, we subtracted $40,000 when our original was about 35,000. That's just to leave us some wiggle room. $40,000 for such a small property is a pretty big renovation. It's between average and big. But $40,000 would definitely take you a long way with a property like that. Any more questions before moving on?
Oh yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead.
All right, so the original price of that house was 86,000, right?
Correct.
And we're trying to get it for 80,000, right?
Right. So the original price was 85,000, and we're trying to get it at 80,000.
Oh, okay. Well, when we did the math, the price range was about at around 86,000,
Correct.
and then our MAO was 80,000.
Correct.
So when we try to lock that under contract as 80,000, right?
Correct.
You said we have to flip the contract for about 86.
86,000 to make your $6,000 profit.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay.
Cool.
I have another question real quick. Are you later on? Are you gonna be like showing us a script of some sort, or like
right? So, or do you mean the contracts, or do you mean?
not the contracts, but for calling the home owner or agent?
I'm actually working on a script right now for not only you guys but my past classes as well, and I'm very against scripts, just because they tend to bring in a bunch of bad habits. Nonetheless, just due to popular requests, I am making one. But again, I don't recommend them because again they bring in bad habits. What happened with me a lot of the time was I wouldn't know what to say at a certain point, and I would depend on my script too much, the one that I had at the time when I was starting off. And sometimes when I didn't have it around, it was I was in the middle of a cold call, or I was getting a call back for whatever, a property, and then sometimes I wouldn't know what to say, and I didn't have my script to depend on, and my kind of, I guess, my juices in my head weren't flowing the way they should have been. When I got off the contract and I kind of just started talking on my own and kind of talking to these cash buyers and talking to these owners, these agents, it kind of allowed me to realize that it's not as bad as it seems, and just to kind of have more confidence when talking with them. And that's really what it did for me when I got off the scripts. Just gave me more confidence in myself. When I'm talking.
Because you already know the questions to ask and everything. So.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of where it's going to be at. Definitely, though, if you're starting off, I mean, go ahead and use a script. I don't mind it. Again, I am providing you guys with one. However, I don't recommend you stay with it for too long. Make sure you kind of switch it up and make it your own after a while. Yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question. Any more questions real quick before I go ahead and move it on? Cool, perfect. So everything so far, let me run it down real quick on what we've done. We opened up Zillow. We searched up Oklahoma. We filtered out. We found our property for 85,000. Once we found our property, we want to go ahead and we found our max allowed offer using our equation, which again was ARV times 70% minus repairs minus fees. And that gave us a max allowed offer of 80,000. This means this is how much I'm going to be offering. Now, the reason I do all this is because the next step is going to be to do your call. I like to have everything ready when I do my call, especially if you're going to be talking with an owner. It's good to have everything ready and have all your numbers ready, how much you're going to offer, things of that sort, just so you sound professional. On you, the checkers are going to help you when you're starting off. Now, how do you find the contact for these people? How do you find the information? How do you know who to call? Simple as just scrolling down and looking at the listing agent. I recommend you write this down for sure. And there's always three people you're gonna want to talk to. It's either gonna be the homeowner, it's gonna be the listing agent, or the seller's agent. Those are the three you're always gonna want to talk to. Just depending on who has the property listed and who's selling the property, really. Here, as we can see, it's a listing agent. Her name is Pat Slack. That's a pretty cool name if you ask me. And so we would be talking to an agent in this case. Um, Agents and owners are pretty much the same thing. There's just one key factor that really hinders everything. One, obviously, is that you're adding somebody else to the equation. You're adding somebody else to the whole business aspect of things. But you also can negotiate with them as much as you would want to with the seller, and that's for a couple of reasons. The main reason is because they're kind of like a middleman in this whole process, and they're just helping the seller find a buyer for their property. And so she kind of just gives prices back and forth, and she doesn't really have, you can't really win her over when it comes to her wanting to work with you. She just kind of wants to see where she could get the best commission and kind of go with it from there. Unfortunately, that's how it's going to be with a bunch of listing agents and a bunch of sellers agents. When it comes to talking to the owner, it's a little bit more different because again, you can kind of work with them and kind of get into their mind space on how they're thinking, and why they're thinking that way and work the numbers down. So that's really the only difference. Besides that, there is no difference on how you would talk to them and communicate with them. So yeah, first things first is her number is right here. If you're on your computer, or specifically, I should say, if you're not on a Mac or on a computer that can make calls, for some reason on the computer, her number wouldn't be here, or any listing agent number wouldn't be here. If you just plop this number into your phone on Zillow, on your phone's Zillow, prop the address, you'll go ahead and scroll down, and it'll go ahead and give you all the information. But once again, all we would do is we would call this number, and we would just tell her, something like this. It's simple. Hi, my name is blank. I'm an investor in the area, and I see you have the property listed over on 4318 Granger Street, Oklahoma City. And I just wanted to know a few things about the property. Now, obviously, you wouldn't tell her with the tone that I have. Currently, real quick, guys, to let you know, I have COVID, so it's kind of something I've been going through. I'm going through the motions about it, but definitely has not hindered me and stopped me from moving forward with my whole business behind me on my back. Yeah, so if I sound a little bit sluggish and whatnot, that's the reason why. Typically, your tone of voice matters a lot when you're doing these calls, because they're gonna see how you feel towards the property and how you feel towards it. Now, my biggest thing is never to act overly excited, but never act under undertone or monotone either, because if you sound really null, kind of, you're gibberish, and you're stuttering over yourself, and you don't have that great, I don't know how to pronounce it, because you can't really get it. It's all by practice, and it's a certain tone in your voice where you kind of have to have a fake voice, so to say, and talk to these people, because it actually, believe it or not, it matters a lot. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of what you want to tell her again with the happy tone. It's, hi, my name is blank. I'm interested in the property you have listed over on, we'll say 123 Main Street for now. And I just wanted to see if I could get to know a little bit more about it. Now that right there, guys, automatically makes you the head of the caller. You ask the first question. Not only did you introduce yourself, but you asked the first question in one whole sentence. It was quick, simple, easy, straight to the point. They know who you are, they know what you're looking for, and they know what property you're interested in. Now, their follow up question to that might be, so what would you like to know about it? Then this is where I'll answer your question a little. This is where you're going to start to ask, where I really ask the four main questions is, yeah, so I would like to know a little bit more about the plumbing on the property, the electrical on the property, the foundation on the property, the roofing, and the HVAC. I guess that's five. Um, Now, why do I ask for these specifically first? That's just because these are the main ones. Now, specifically, I always ask for foundation. Foundation is always important, because if you have a property with a weak foundation, it's gonna go, and it's not gonna hold up over time, kind of like anything in life, right? So foundation is always the first question that I ask is, how's the foundation doing? If everything's good from there, I'll ask about electrical and plumbing. And if everything's good from there, I'll start asking about the key details, or excuse me, the minor details of the property. That'd be paint, flooring, kitchen, things like that, just to kind of get her insight. Again, remember, I calculated 40,000, but I always like to ask just to get somebody else's insight on it. And if your numbers are pretty much in the same price area, then you have done your math correctly and everything's correctly. Now, sometimes you may have done your math correctly and all that, but they just still don't want to budge with your offer. And so at that point, you would just kind of, count your losses and move on. Nonetheless, though, that's going to be the kind of the main things is you just introduce yourself, make sure you let them know who you are and what you're interested in doing. Don't waste time. Don't waste in this business, guys. Don't waste nobody time, just like you wouldn't want anybody to waste yours. That would be the biggest thing I would recommend, is make sure you don't waste nobody's time. So remember, we're keeping it short, we're keeping it simple. At the end of the call, guys, is where it's going to really matter. Now, typically when you're speaking with the owner, let's pretend we're speaking with an owner here. The Pat's the owner. You would, at the end of the call, you would say, so where can I send all this information to? You want to make sure you ask that. That way you're not texting back and forth at the end, and perhaps hindering you from closing your deal for whatever reason that may be. So yeah, make sure you're asking for email, number, name. That way you could send out your initial contract. Now, when you're talking with a listing agent, they'll have a contract ready for you, or a seller's agent. Don't worry, don't mind it. All these contracts are pretty much the same. Just make sure that the contract states that you are allowed to assign it and you are allowed to cancel the contract. I'll go into more depth in that here, following up on the next step. However, does anybody have any question on this step currently, which would be just to make your initial call?
Yeah.
Go
Are you writing down her answers?
It kind of depends. So when she's talking about the foundation and stuff like that, those are kind of things you don't really need to write down because you're gonna kind of have that memorized already. I mean, that's just me personally. If you need to write it down, definitely go ahead and do it. Nothing wrong with it. Me personally, if I'm asking about foundation, lighting, and electrical, and they all go through clear, I'll kind of just go ahead and end up forgetting about them and kind of just note to myself that there's nothing wrong in that area of the project.
I asked that because I know you're gonna be, or I know the buyer is gonna be wanting, these
Right. So again, that just kind of has to go with either you're good at keeping notes to yourself, or you kind of have to have them jotted down. It really just depends on what kind of person you are.
For sure.
But I see where that question came from. Definitely. Any more questions on this particular step?
So
Can
what if
you repeat? Oh, my fault.
Alright,
You
go
could go
ahead.
first. I was just gonna say, can you repeat what are the 5 main things to ask for?
Plumbing.
Electrical, plumbing, foundation.
Yeah, so it's electrical, plumbing, foundation, HVAC, and roofing. HVAC being AC heater, and roofing being obviously the roof of the property.
All right, thank you.
No problem. And remember, if you for sure missed something that I said, you can always just go back and rewatch these videos. But yeah, go ahead and just ask them, ask any of your questions.
All right, so what if the seller, the homeowner has like he says there's a foundation problem or like a plumbing problem, like what do you do with that? Like how do you determine the price for it?
Right. So automatically, if they would tell me that there was a foundation problem, I would personally just move on to my next property. The reason for that being is finding a cash buyer for a property that has foundation work need to be done to it is very hard to find because a lot of the time, if you have a foundation problem, you don't know whether or not you're gonna have to take down the whole house before you could rebuild it again. So if when you're starting off, me personally, if I was new to the game, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know any sellers, I didn't know, or excuse me, any buyers. I didn't know somebody to work with. I would just count my losses on this one again and move on. And I guess I shouldn't say count my losses because you're necessarily not losing anything besides a little bit of time it took you to call. But yeah, I would just, if there's a foundation problem, I would just move on. When it comes to plumbing and electrical, again, it's just making sure that you have a cash buyer ready, who's comfortable with working with, maybe having to redo the electrical or the plumbing. Um, the electrical and plumbing aren't major problems. They're just good problems to know and let your cash buyer know. But the foundation problem definitely is a big one that you want to catch right away.
Would you say the same thing with roofing? Because I know that can get pretty
Right.
expensive.
So it could be pretty expensive. However, I would kind of keep it on that same category. Just make sure you let your the cash buyer know, hey, roofing hasn't been done in over 20 years or whatnot, and you could just kind of go from there.
Will you deduct that from the max offer then?
Right. So you're just gonna kind of have to see whether you're super far off or not. If you start hearing all these things that you're gonna need new drywall, you're gonna need new wood for the frame. It's gonna have to get stripped down. Yeah, you could definitely go ahead and start adding it to a heavier renovation. However, like I said, we listed this one at 40,000 renovation, and $40,000 for a 900 square foot home is plenty of money to work with. But definitely, if you start seeing that the costs start to add on more and more than you thought, definitely I would recommend that you go ahead and redo your calculations in the rehab section.
All right. And if the house is like in probate or has a mortgage,
Right. So
deduct
the
it
property,
beforehand?
if it's like that, or with the mortgage and whatnot, that's really not to your concern because let's say, for instance, this property had a $15,000 mortgage on it. All that simply is gonna get done is as soon as this seller receives the money, is he's gonna pay off the mortgage, or the mortgage is gonna get paid off before he even receives his money. So it
All right.
really has nothing to do with you. You see how that kind of really,
Right.
in essence, yeah, it just has nothing to do with you.
All right, cool. All right.
Yeah. Any more questions before I move on?
No.
Perfect. Yeah. So the next thing, obviously we have their information ready. Let's assume we were talking to the homeowner. Real quick for this one is we would move on to our purchase and sales agreement. You would say, "Great, thank you so much for your time. I'll go ahead and get you those contracts over immediately here or quickly or within 10 minutes, within 5 minutes." I typically never give nobody a time for nothing. I don't like giving times out because a lot of the time, if for whatever reason you're 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, Some people don't understand, which is, things happen, or sometimes even what happens a lot of times is I can't come to my word. I know definitely sometimes, something will come up, and you have your time zone, your time range doesn't really work out anymore, and whatever it may be. Just kind of a recommendation. I never recommend you give times on when you're going to do something. If not, maybe say I'll do it, I'll get back to you a little bit later or soon, or you kind of figure it out there. But yeah, so after you say I'll go ahead and get you those contracts soon, you're going to go ahead and start working on it. So I actually have one here that needs to be filled out. It's kind of an example one, the one that this is the way it's gonna look when you guys get it. So the first things first is to fill out the date, and that's pretty self-explanatory. I am gonna fill this out with you guys, all together one by one. So if you guys, yeah, just take a look here. And again, you guys will have all this to your disposal. No worries here. The first things first is the date. We're on the 22nd. Self-explanatory here. Boom. Simple. 20. Next is going to be the seller's name. Now, obviously, we don't know let's assume the seller is our friend Pat here. Pat Slack is her name. Write her name down. Write your name down, obviously. Whatever that may be, I'll go ahead and leave that blank. I would put my mother's name here typically, not my name, just because, again, she's the one that signs for me, and I'm not over 18 yet. I'm actually 16 if you do.
Real quick, because I'm 16 as well, and I'm curious, what like reliability is she having when you put her name down? Like,
Literally just the fact that she's over 18. That's it.
So there's nothing to do with like taxes or like.
It's a cash check, and I was actually have been talking to my tax person, and or not my mom's, and so what we're kind of seeing so far is that I'm not gonna really have to write it all down any of it really at all, just because they are all cash checks. So it's yeah.
All right, for sure.
Hope I kind of answered your question a little bit. But yeah, does anybody have any more questions real quick? Moving on. Cool. So next things here is just gonna put gonna be to put the city and the state, be generic on where this property is or where this transaction is going down. As we can see here, we are in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So we're just gonna go ahead and do that. All right, boom, perfect. That's what we have here. Next is just gonna be to put down the street address and the state. You know what? I'm not even gonna waste my time to do that, just because again, this is self-explanatory. Here, just put the address of the property. This would be your 123, or you know what? We'll go ahead and do it real quick. 123 Main Street, or whatever your property address is here. And always, guys, when you do copy and paste off of Zillow, it's gonna come out here unbolded. I like to bold all these key information here just to make it easy to read. It's just as courtesy for my for the seller. She's doing business with us, so go ahead and help her out here in this instance. Command C, Command V to paste. Boom, perfect. So we have our first clause, which is the property description, filled out, perfect, ready to go. Boom. Next things next is clause number 2, which is the price of the property. Let's assume she had agreed on our price point and it all went well. At 80,000. So let's go ahead and write that down. 80,000. Next, okay, so remember clause 2 is just pretty much regarding how much we're going to be paying for the property, how much they're asking for essentially. Next thing is clause number 3, which pretty much states that we will be paying in cash and that the original seller will not accept any, monthly payments or financial contingencies. Clause number 4 is a title and convenience. These are kind of clauses that I kind of use just to protect you a little bit more. And it states that the seller will transfer marketable title property by warranty deed, and the seller will clear all liens and encumbrances from title with the exception of unpaid taxes. So yeah, that just states that they will go ahead and take care of all liens or judgments against the property. Now, number 5 is my closing clause. This pretty much states that our buyer, again, this is not you, this is the cash buyer, so this will not tap into how much you will be making. But it does say that the buyer will pay for any escrow fees, attorney fees, title insurance fees, transfer taxes, and recording fees on the property. The seller will pay for, again, any liens or judgments against the property. This transaction will be held by and closed by a reputable notary, public title company, or attorney as determined by the buyer. So that just states that we will choose which title company to close with. And earnest money. D is the clause 5, letter D is for earnest money and choice of title. So for earnest money, guys, it really just depends on how much they ask for. Earnest money could be $1. Earnest money could be $10,000. It's really just kind of a safe deposit holding to really just let the seller feel secure that no matter what happens, he's still gonna make some money on the property. Now, typically, depending on where you're working and what the price point of the property is, I would recommend you don't pay for more than 1%. Meaning, if the property is at 100,000, you will only pay $1,000 in earnest money. Now, keep in mind here, guys. I'll actually highlight this here because I know this question might even come up a little bit later again. But this is refundable. You have this refundable for 10 days, and you guys can literally get your money back, your earnest money back to you, no matter what happens within 10 days. So let's say they ask for what is typically a $1,000 earnest money deposit. Now I know I said 1%, but it's close to 1%. It would be about $800. So I wouldn't mind paying an extra 1,000. Why? Because I know that I will be getting this deposit or this earnest money back within whenever closing date is. At closing date, you will get 2 checks: one check for your assignment fee and another check for your earnest money fee. Now we see here that $1,000 earnest money. What this is saying is that essentially $1,000 earnest money will be sent to whichever choice of title company that you choose. Now, how do you choose your title company? There's a couple of ways to do it, and there's a couple of title companies or different title companies or methods you could use. The first thing would just be to use a local company, title company to you. That would be, within a mile away from you or 10 miles away from you, kind of driving distance, I guess, is what I would recommend. And all you would do is just search up title companies near me, call them all up and ask if they work with wholesalers or if they work with assigning contracts. Now, if you have to explain to them what a wholesaler is, then they are probably not a good and reputable company to go by. Now, if they say yes, we work with assigning contracts and wholesalers all the time, then you know that they're a good company to choose. That's literally all you're gonna do. Now, the next thing option would be to work with a title company in the state that you are working in. So, for instance, I'm in California and I'll be working in Oklahoma, and sometimes I will use a title company in Oklahoma. Now, that really only happens when I see that I would be able to lock down the contract if or lock down my cash buyer, whoever, if I can see that using their title company would affect the outcome of whatever the transaction that's being done. I will go ahead and do that. But you could use either one. Either one works perfectly fine. Either using a title company in local to you or wherever you're working. Title companies can either wire you the funds or just send you a check through the mail. So you shouldn't have any problems there.
So it doesn't even matter if you're buying the property in another state and you have the title company in your state.
Right. It does not matter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much clause 1 through 5. Now I know 5 is a bit of a bigger one. So does anybody have any questions on clause numbers 1 through 5 before moving on? Cool. That's awesome. Now 6 through really 12, I guess. Now this is gonna be the closing date. This is a date that you determine with your seller. Typically, I always like to make my closing date either on or before 30 days of the when it's signed. So let's say we were getting this signed today. It's currently, what do we say, the 22nd. I would want this to be closed by January the 22nd. So all I would do here, just go January 22nd, just like that. Boom. And we have a closing date. Next is going to be your cancellation date, your inspection period, which is 10 days. Remember, that's going to be the 10 days that we have to get our money back. Guys, by inspection or inspection period.
Could you stretch that out to 15 days if you're feeling like you might not find a buyer in time?
Right. So here's my thing. If you have to ask for, if after that, really, after about, wait, hold on. My bad, dude. Not sure. Here it is.
Can you mute this guy, please?
I know. I'm just what I'm trying to do, but I can't even open. The Zoom call. I see here. Okay, there you go. I think I might have got her. Okay, perfect.
You
My
got
bad.
it.
My bad about that. Alrighty. So yeah. So our inspection day is pretty much just a cover up for a time that we have to find our cash buyer, which is 10 days. Now, if after really the 8th day to 9th day, you can't find your cash buyer, about 99% of the time, that means you couldn't find one, and you're just gonna again have to cut your losses or just kind of move on to your next property. 10 days is typically what the inspection period day is. Once you start adding on more time to the day, is that's when you start selling more like a wholesaler. And we definitely don't want to give that off to them right off the bat or let them smell that off of us, anytime soon. Or at least not until they sign the contract. So let I would recommend you just keep it at 10 days. Because again, if you're doing enough work and you're, putting in countless hours of calling, either you're gonna find someone or you don't. And so if after really that 8th day, you're seeing that, hey, I can't find somebody, all you would do is write a letter or call up the seller, let them know you're going to have to cancel, and then call your title company and let them know you're going to be canceling the contract as well.
So,
It-
so on that like 8th day, no money has any money left your bank account on that like 8th or 9th day.
right. So at this point, you have already sent $1,000 of earnest money to the title company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Remember, guys, if the owner or the agent is asking for the money up hand, meaning a quick Zelle payment or a Cash App payment, this is a scam. I know it probably sounds obvious, but it might not to a lot of you as well. So just make sure that you're never sending money just like that or wiring. Even if you say it's a wire, make sure you're always wiring money only to title companies and definitely not to either the seller or the agent. That's just a heads up, real quick. And yeah, so for your cancellation date, it's always going to be 10 days. So if we were doing it 10 days from today, it would have to be January 2nd, I believe, would be our last day of inspection. Or really what it means to us is our last day that we could have found a cash buyer. Boom, just like that. A is a disclosure. This just pretty much states that the buyer will either represent itself or the seller represent itself, or if you need to go ahead and discuss with a professional with license real estate attorneys, realtors, appraisers, whatever you need to use. Number 9 is one of the more important clauses is our assignment fee. This contract here is what states whether or not um, we are allowed to assign the property over. So if this clause wasn't there, typically we wouldn't be able to assign the contract. Now notice that it states here, no notice to seller of assignment is necessary, meaning that you actually don't even need to let the seller know that you are going to wholesale their property, because why? It's not necessary. Now this is a contract that they will be reading. If they read over it, that's totally on them. But this whole clause here just pretty much states that we have the rights to not only assign this contract, but assign this contract without the seller knowing. Next is the binding agreement. It's another one of those clauses that kind of just gives you that extra safety. This agreement is binding to the heirs, administrators, executors, successors, personal representatives, and signs of buyer and seller, and supersedes all other agreements, written or oral, regarding the subject matter hereof. Number 11 is just the deadline for acceptance. This is pretty much just the same day. I always put the date of the same day. So if I get this under contract and I want it back signed, let's say I got it under contract right now, we agreed for me to send a contract, and I want this back today by 11:59 p.m. I would simply do that, write the time of December 22nd, and make sure that I had it back by 11:59 p.m. Other than that, there might be any other information, kind of just either stating maybe the seller has liens on the property or there's a mortgage on the property, which again, it's good to stay in the contract. It doesn't necessarily affect you. It's just good to stay on the contract. Now, if after that there's no other information, all you would do is move on to getting this signed by your seller and by yourself. How do I get it signed by myself and by the seller? All I do is upload this document to DocuSign. If you're working with Google Docs, just go over to File, download it as a PDF. Then all you do is upload that PDF onto DocuSign, and you just state where you would want the seller and buyer to sign. I will show you guys that. However, when you open DocuSign, it does open some sensitive information that I don't want to give out yet. However, this is not a sponsored or nothing like that. I just love using them. If you do want to go try them out now, I think they have like a month off free subscription trial, and you could use it there. Or if you actually do this on your phone, I did hear from another one of my students that it is free if you do this on your phone, getting the contract signed via phone, which is totally possible and totally doable. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much a whole contract filled out specifically for this property here. Does anybody have any questions on this whole contract?
I have two questions. One being, would you send this over to, for instance, like Pat Slack, the agent?
Right. So when you're working with an agent, like I mentioned, typically they're gonna have a contract that they work with, just called the state contract, and it's just because they work at for license and for a brokerage and for the state, so they have to have um a state contract. Really, all I recommend is that you have the assignment contract in there and the cancellation clause. Clause is what I meant to say. Just once you receive the contract, read it over, kind of skim it, and just ask her, hey, can you just add two things real quick? It'll essentially be the same thing. Like for her, it'll say other information, and on her or his contract, it'll just state that you are allowed to sign the contract, and there can be a cancellation within the first 10 days. Once
Okay.
you
Yeah.
see that stated on their contract, then you should be good to move on.
So she would give this contract to the seller since she is the middleman.
No. So she would have a contract because this contract is essentially when you're working with the owner of a property.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
My other question would be, would you recommend like sending this to her on the call, like if it's an owner and you're sending this to her on the call to make sure she gets it signed? Like, would you recommend that?
You could definitely do that. However, I don't see how this could be beneficial or really, not. I mean, if she's gonna sign it, she's gonna sign it, and if her plan was not to sign it, her plan was not to sign it. That's that pretty much goes the whole way, because if you give it, if she already has in her mind that you're gonna send it to her, but she's just gonna waste your time, then that's all that's gonna happen. Regardless, you could be on the phone call for an hour. But if everything goes smooth and she goes ahead and she sees that she could sign it, and she's not here to waste your time, she's here to actually sell her property, then you shouldn't really have any problems with anything.
For sure.
Yeah. Any more questions on
Um,
this contract specific, or did you have another question?
No, I had a question. Yeah. Does it specifically have to have a 1,000 as earnest money?
So earnest money is always negotiable, and it can always be any amount. Earnest money is not always $1,000. Earnest money could be $500. Earnest money could be $10. Really, kind of exaggerating it there. But no, it does not always have to be $1,000. It's just kind of what the seller wants for earnest money and what you guys kind of come up on an agreement to.
Oh, okay. So what would you like range it around? Like just 500 to 1,000?
So I always do about 1% of the property. So let's say the property is $50,000, then you would only pay $500 of earnest money. Or if it's $100,000, you would only pay $1,000 of earnest money. You see how that kind of that's the 1% rule that I use, at least.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, thank you.
Sometimes I'll go a little bit over in this instance. They were asking 80, but earnest money was 1,000. Then I'll go ahead and put $1,000 towards earnest. Why? Because I know that I'm getting my money back regardless. So yeah, I hope that was kind of able to answer your question.
Okay,
So
thank you.
so earnest money is just your own money from your pocket?
Right, pretty much. So I know you guys hear a lot. You could start with $0, and you definitely could start with $0. And the reason why is because a bunch of owners, I'd typically say owners more than agents, but they won't ask for the earnest money just because they're not aware that they could be asking for earnest money. Definitely has happened to me, and it pretty much something that happens on a daily basis. Of someone not asking for earnest money. Once you send the contract over, all you would do is just literally just delete D, the under clause 5 letter D, just delete it, and no earnest money will have to be given, and that's how you kind of do it with $0 when you do hear that.
So if they ask for no earnest money, you don't put nothing down.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
And when would you send the earnest money?
So you would typically send the money the day of or the morning after is kind of how I like to really play it out.
And if you
And you already have your
cancel, uh,
I'm sorry, what was that?
if you cancel the contract, would you get your earnest money back or not?
Right. So if you cancel within the 10-day inspection period, which I have here, so in this case,
Yeah.
it's for January 2nd, you would get your earnest money back. If it hits January 3rd, then the money becomes hard, meaning the money is not yours no longer.
Okay.
Yeah. So when someone loses, the property, and they also lose their earnest money, because they forgot to cancel their contract or something that was, in their total discretion and their total reach, I don't feel bad for them or I don't really go out my way to help them because it was something that was definitely mentioned, and that make sure that you have these 10 days and you're on top, knowing what day you're on. That way, if you have to cancel on the 10th day, you can still cancel on the 10th day.
Oh, okay.
Have,
So
have
basically,
the
you're not losing any money.
Exactly.
Okay.
have you ever been in like a situation where like it's getting close to like that 10th day, and for some odd reason like they're closed or they don't like answer the phone, or I don't know.
I have not been in that situation, but in that case, what you would just do there is just call title company. Remember, you have to be super responsible and super on time. So if you know that the title company closes at 5, you got to make sure that you're canceling this contract before 5 o'clock. Just a quick heads up: most title companies close at 5. I don't know why they close so early. They just close at 5. But yeah, so just kind of keep that as a heads up, and you should be good if you follow all guidelines and all procedures. Well, 100%, you should be good.
So,
So can. Oh, okay. My bad. You go first.
what is inspection day?
Yeah, so the inspection day is that 10-day period. We call it an inspection day. It's when you go in and look at the property, but it's really those 10 days that we have to go in and look at to look for a cash buyer.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
To cancel, do you call the title company, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so to cancel, you call the seller first just to let them know that you're gonna
Uh-huh.
be canceling. That way, they could either tell you yes or no, no matter what. It's kind of out of their opinion. Then after that, you would call title company, let them know that you're gonna have to close, and that you would let them know nicely that you would want your deposit back of in this case $1,000, and
Yeah.
go ahead and just look at the file, look at the contract, make sure it states that you can receive your money back, and if it all states, which it does here, then
Mm-hmm.
you're good. Off to go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions before moving on to the next step?
What if the cash buyer wants to like inspect the property or like look at it, visit it?
Right. So at that point, you would just talk to your seller, let them know that you have an inspector coming in. They're gonna be expecting it either way, that you're gonna have people looking in at the property. So let them know that you're gonna have someone go look at the property. If they could either put a lockbox on there or just keep it open, for a couple of hours, and you should be good from there.
Okay.
Question.
Go ahead.
You can always ask the seller to send you pictures of the property or no?
Of course, always. And especially you might have to sometimes also, because if we look at Zillow, some of the properties don't all have pictures on them, so you might actually have to ask for some pictures or some additional information that kind of extraordinary, I guess we could say.
Thank you.
No problem.
Um,
Go ahead.
so I'm not like I'm gonna be honest. Right now I don't have $1,000 in my bank account.
Right.
So would you say it is like would you say it's pretty risky to put like I don't know like 400 down or like 300?
Risky in what way?
Risky like in
And
that's
like in
all you
losing
have in your bank account and you're gonna send that to the title company, but
Right.
you know you're gonna get it back, but it's still like like
Right.
if you're
So
not responsible.
let's do a couple of things here. Yeah, definitely. If you have $400 left in your bank account and you don't have no food left in your fridge, then I definitely don't recommend it. That's just kind of obvious common sense. However, if it's something you can definitely see yourself doing, although you might have to cut your budget for the month or whatever it may be, I would definitely recommend you do go ahead and do it. Again, remember, you're gonna get this money back regardless. Now, keep a couple of things in mind though. you're either going to get this money back within a 10-day period, or you're going to get this money back within a 30-day period, just depending on whether either you close or you cancel the contract. Now, if you close your contract, it could be up to 30 days. I'm not saying it will take 30 days. It could be, 15 days, 20 days, just depending on when you guys close. It's gone over the 30 days before. It gets a little bit risky there, but it's definitely gone over 30 days. That's just, by a written notice that I'm going to be taking a little bit longer to close. But just kind of keep that in mind that once you give up those $400, you're either going to have to cancel the contract to get it back within those 10 days, or you're going to get your money back within, possibly a 30-day span. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And just in case, like if you don't happen to find a buyer, you can call like up the owner and say, "Can I have like 5 more days or like
Oh yeah,
10 more
yeah.
days?"
Totally. You can let her know and update the contracts, and that could definitely be updated and all that.
For
Def-
sure, for sure.
Any more? Okay, you know what? I think if you do have more questions, don't worry. I will have some time at the end for you to answer any questions you may have. However, I do want to move on just because, believe it or not, we're already down to about our last 45 minutes, which is crazy how fast the time goes by. But yeah, so the next step now, or you know what? I don't want to be rude. Anybody have any more kind of last questions on the contract?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so next thing we have to move on is to looking for cash buyers. Now there's three things that I do, and I will explain two of them and I'll show one of them. Explain two of them. Why? Because they're self-explanatory. And the third one I'll go ahead and show you. It's through Zillow. The first method, and by far one of the easiest methods, one of the most just pretty much self-explanatory, outgoing type of ways to do it, is by using Craigslist. All you would have to do is search up cash buyers near me, and that's literally all it is. It's a matter of going. Let's say in this instance, I'm in Oklahoma. I would go to Craigslist, Oklahoma City to be exact. Go under the real estate tab and search up "We Buy Homes for Cash" or "We Buy Homes." There you will see hundreds upon hundreds, maybe even thousands, just depending on how the market is. Definitely have seen it of listings of people who are buying homes for cash. And it's just a simple search of "We Buy Homes," and their numbers are there, their information on their company. No skip tracing is needed, nothing like that. It's just a simple search of "We Buy Homes." Definitely has happened, and definitely could happen. These are all, legit buyers, people who are trying to do business as well. Sometimes you might run into other wholesalers and it's just going to be a double wholesale, which, it's the same process. You're just, your wholesaler is going to wholesale to another person, if that kind of makes sense. But yeah, so let's go ahead and start, or I guess that would be the first way of finding a cash buyer, would be to do it through Craigslist. Now, the second way you could do it, and another way that I really highly recommend that you get into, is to Facebook Markets. All you have to do is search up, Oklahoma, and the group section on Facebook. If you're familiar with navigating it, I'll go to the group section and just search up Oklahoma real estate, or Oklahoma wholesalers, or Oklahoma, or "We Buy Homes in Oklahoma." Just search up keywords for group names that you could see would work, and you kind of just go from there and list your property up there that you're trying to wholesale, information on it, the address, obviously, price point, and you'll be good from there. Now those are two ways. Again, remember, the first one is Craigslist. Second one would be Facebook Market. Both ways on really Facebook Market. I can see you getting your first deal really pretty quickly on Facebook Market. But those are two ways. Now the third way is requires a little bit more work, but also definitely a high reward. But that's gonna be through Zillow. So all we would do is simply go. So we can see, this property here that's just been renovated. Perfect example. All we would do is find the number of the listing agent and call them up and just say, hey, my name is Samuel, or, fill that in with your name. I have a property that I'm trying to wholesale. That's about, two houses over. One, I'm not even lying here. Literally, it's like across the street and whatnot. All right, that's the wrong. It's the wrong one. So just call them up and say, hey, I have a property. It's about across the street. It has pretty much the same specs. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, about 950 square feet. And I'm asking $86,000 for it. ARV is about 180,000, and I could potentially see this being as a good investment for someone who's trying to go in and put some work on a property. would you have any clients may be interested in purchasing this property from me? And then once you go ahead and just let them know who you are, what you're doing. Again, these calls are going to be quick and simple, especially with the cash buyer, because you're kind of just letting them know that you have a property that's for sale. Is all you're letting them know. Now, a couple of things are going to happen here, or a couple of things could happen here. The first thing and the most I'd say the most common thing is they're just going to ask you to go ahead and give them the information on the property through a text, and they'll go ahead and send it out to all of their cash buyers or people that they know may be interested. Now, once they do that, it's totally out of your hands until you go ahead and wait for a call back or for something, yeah, really just a call back is all you can wait for. Another thing that may happen is they say, yeah, I have somebody that's interested in this property right away. Can you please send me contracts and whatnot? Go from there. Or if you have to, maybe he may be interested. John is who I'm referring to. Maybe he may be interested in, and he might, want to get a couple more details on the property. Whichever may happen is all great, and potential leads or excuse me, potential cash buyers for your property. And that's really the third way to do it is through Zillow. Now there is more other methods, obviously, skip tracing, and this is just kind of more of a free way to do it. First of all, because skip tracing and cheap definitely don't go in the same sentence. So these three ways are the three ways that I would recommend, especially when you're starting off with, if you don't have enough money or barely enough money just for the earnest money. Again, great ways to start off is just by doing this. Those are the three simple ways to find a cash buyer. Is everybody kind of on board on how you would go about finding your cash buyers or anything like that? Go ahead. Anyone who has a question.
Have you ever got multiple like buyers wanting to buy the property?
Right. So when that happens, it's kind of literally it's very fun actually to experience. But yeah, it has happened, and all you kind of do is just go back and forth and let them know, hey, I have another offer on the property, and that's just kind of the way it is. And you can cool. If not, I'm gonna have to go on with this other person. And just depending on how the property is, you go back and forth with it. But yeah, definitely a fun experience to be
For
in.
sure.
Yeah.
So I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Say like you. Okay, so say like you give them the address, right, of the property and everything. Are you supposed to tell like the agent that you're a wholesaler? Like, aren't they gonna like search up the house and then see that it was listed on Zillow or something?
Right. So once you have the property under contract, they can't hinder with anything there. It's gonna kind of have to be either they buy it or they move on to the next one themselves. Typically what I like to do, and that's worked I think 99.9% of the time, is let's say, in this instance, when looking at that Granger property here, I get it down for 80,000. I'm just gonna tell them, hey, can you just bring this price down to 80,000, and or bring it up to 86,000, or just kind of however you want to play it. I would say either bring it up to 86,000 or something. Just ask them to do that, to filter that out real quick. I have never had really a problem with them wanting to do that. Now, either I would go down, or excuse me, either I would go up to 86,000 just so that I can sell it for 86,000 myself. I would tell them to move it up to 86,000 and put it under pending, just so they know that it's sold for me for 86,000 is what it's saying on record, and I can go ahead and offer it for 86,000 too, and they'll see that they'll be getting a pretty good deal on the property. That's typically what I would go ahead about doing if you're worried about them finding out about you being a cash buyer, or excuse me, a wholesaler, and knowing how much they got the property for. Now, either way though, keep in mind, me personally, again, I've never had a problem with that. Those are just some extra safety precautions that I would take if I was in your shoes specifically. But yeah, I hope that was kind of able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you.
I have one. So does it matter how long the property has been on Zillow?
it does and it doesn't. The reason why is if you, I mean, here clearly we can see this one's only been on for 20 days. It's got 2,000 views, 57 saves. Now it matters only a certain time. Like if you see the property's been up for over 365 days, I guess you could say, a year essentially, then there's something up with the property. It's not selling for some sort of reason, whether it's the area. So kind of just really I would say all it is a bit of a red flag, and just means do a little bit more due diligence before you go ahead and pull the trigger on it. That's all it would really mean. If it's been on the market for 1 day, obviously, and you see it's a good deal, then it means jump on it. But if it's something where you've seen has been on market again 300, 400, 500 days, 700 days, I've even seen, then all it means is do a little bit more research on the property and make sure that you're getting a good deal for it, and that you're going to be able to wholesale it to make a deal yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Any more questions? Perfect. Yes, again, time goes by extremely quickly. We're 5 minutes till our last 30. Let's go ahead and move on to what essentially would be the next step, and that would be the assignment contract. So let's we call up our cash buyer. Again, you guys will have scripts for all this. It's just kind of um yeah, you guys will have scripts for all this, but this call again is very simple. It's just hey, my name is Samuel. I'm an investor in the area. I have a property that needs to be rehabbed over on 4318 Granger Street. I see that you have a property listed where was it? I see you have a property listed over on 4323 Granger Street that has just been renovated, and I was wondering if you yourself had any clients or you yourself was interested in the property. And then you kind of just go from there and spark up the conversation there. But again, these are simple calls. These guys typically are not here to get their time wasted at all, because they're typically people who work with a bunch of properties or who work with a bunch of homes. And again, they can't waste any of their time. But yeah, does anybody have any questions so far?
What are some general questions that the buyer will ask when you call them?
Right. So kind of the same questions that you asked your seller, just is there anything wrong with the property? Why are you selling it? They may ask you, or we're letting them know that we're wholesaling it. So they're asking why are you going to wholesale it? It's just, maybe some questions like that. Nothing too crazy. I mean, essentially once you let them know that you're wholesaling it, they know kind of what knowledge you're at with the property and where you're at with it, especially once you tell them that potentially you're not in state. They know kind of what yeah, they pretty much know what again, them being in the market for such a long time, for the most part. But yeah, just some questions they may ask you is kind of the same generic questions you asked your seller. Nothing too different from there.
Has a buyer ever wanted to not work with you because you are a wholesaler?
No, not the buyer, but yes, the seller. The buyer, no. Again, where business can be made, business will be done, and that's kind of the generic, what everyone says. Whether you're a buyer or a wholesaler. But unfortunately, though, sometimes sellers, knowing that you're a wholesaler, it'll make them sketch out a little bit, and I don't understand why. But it'll just not, it'll make them not want to work with you. Definitely has happened to me, and that definitely will happen to you guys. It's just about rolling through the punches and moving on to the next, really, is all it is.
Cool.
Alrighty, guys. So yeah, moving on. I hope I was able to answer your question on that. Is going to be the assignment contract. Now, this contract is super simple. As you can see, it's only about, I mean, really, it could be a whole paragraph, but let's say it's about 2 paragraphs together. Or really, I guess, we could say it's 5 different separate paragraphs or sentences, however you want to say it. The first things first, it's simple. It's going to be your name. If I were filling this out for real, I'd put my mom's name, which is Georgina Castanos. Boom, just like that. Assigns the rights, assigns this contract, the date you will be assigning it. So let's say, I don't know, let's say we found our cash buyer 3 days later from today, or let's say 4th day, because 3 days later is Christmas. So December 26th. December 26th is when we found our cash buyer. And then our assignee will go here. Let's say our assignee, as we saw this property here, was listed by John. So John. John was his name. Located at, simply all you would do here is put the address of the property. And the address of the property here, we can find it here. Remember, we always want to bold out all the important information. And boom, there you go. You have yourself the whole first segment filled out, I guess you could say. Next things next is going to be the purchase contract being assigned for amount. This is just going to be how much you're going to be making on the contract assignment. In this case, we would be making $6,000. Now, cancel. What this is saying is that this first contract for 80,000 will be assigned to this person for 86,000 again, or it's going to be assigned to them for 80,000, but they will be paying us a $6,000 fee for assigning that contract to them. The buyer shall close on. Where do we get the closing date from? The closing date simply comes from the same exact closing date that we have on here, which happens to be January 22nd, or 30 days from the initial signing of the contract. So we'll go ahead and just copy paste that there, January 22nd. Boom, perfectly. Now, I always ask for a non-refundable earnest money from your cash buyer. Now, what this means is that, yes, they will get their money back if the property closes, completely. However, if for whatever reason they have to cancel, their earnest money will not be refundable. And I always ask either for 2,500 or 5,000, depending on whether or not I trust who I'm working with, the cash buyer. So if this is, obviously this is somebody I don't know, I would ask for a $5,000 of earnest money non-refundable. This meaning that if for whatever reason my cash buyer decides to cancel this contract, I would lose my $1,000. I would lose my $1,000 to the original seller, but I would be receiving $5,000 from my cash buyer, meaning that really I didn't lose any money at all, but made $4,000 throughout the transaction. Does everybody see how I kind of did that? Anybody have a question on that? Because I know that's probably something might be a lot to take in with earnest money. But does anybody have a question on why I'm asking for 5,000 or just anything like that? Really?
So basically, you're asking for that money just to make sure that the buyer is not gonna cancel on you, right?
Exactly.
Same thing.
That's essentially what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, she pretty much said it. I mean, it's self-explanatory. Really. But yeah, once you have that down, it's gonna be again title company. This title company here is gonna be the same title company that you chose with the seller's title company. Again, remember we want to work with everything under one title company. That way, we know it just wouldn't make sense to have different parts of this transaction go on different parts of the United States essentially. So we keep everything the same with the same title company. The title company you chose here, you're gonna go ahead and just copy it down here. Now, once you have this contract again signed, you're gonna sign it the same way. Upload it to DocuSign, and then you would just get it signed to there. Choose where you would want the wholesaler to sign and the buyer to sign. Again, the wholesaler being you, the buyer being I should state here, the cash buyer. Yeah, you pretty much have your whole contract filled out, wait for them to sign. Now, assuming that you have your first contract in the title company, all you would do is send this contract over to the title company as well, and just let them know that you're just gonna want to assign the contract over to this new person. Again, this would be John. We want to assign our original contract that's under our name to John's name. So here, instead of our name, we want John's name to be there. Once you go ahead and contact title company, they'll go ahead. They already have the file open on this property. They'll just go ahead and add this onto the file. Make sure that they know that you're signing this contract for the amount of $6,000. Your original cash buyer, remember your cash buyer will pay $86,000 to the title company. The title company will make two checks, one to you for $6,000 and one to your seller for $80,000. So your seller will receive $80,000. You will receive $6,000, and our friend John over here, a cash buyer, will receive the keys to his new property. And that's wholesaling A through C, guys. That's essentially all it is. As you can see, it's not rocket science. It's not busting your brains out. It's very simple and it's very self-explanatory. Now we have about 25 minutes left here. Does anybody have any questions regarding wholesaling, essentially anything on what I just went through, and kind of what's yeah, what I did essentially.
Yeah, I have a
I
question.
Go ahead.
Um, when would you receive the earnest money from the cash buyer?
So you're not going to be the one receiving this money. The title company is going to be the one receiving this money, as well as your 1,000. You're not going to be sending it to the seller. You're going to be sending it to the title company.
Oh, so if they do cancel, the title company will send it to you, the
Exactly.
5,000.
Exactly.
Oh, oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's why you don't have to have the risk of, oh, what if you
So you
know
don't have to like worry about it. You don't have to worry about it.
right. So I would say really once you get a confirmation of earnest money being sent, so once you either get a proof of receipt, approved by receipt or approved by a call from the title company, whichever way you get proof that earnest money has all been sent. All you have to do is really sit back and wait for your big check to come in the mail. In this case for us, it would be $6,000, right? Our
You,
first.
do you get a receipt through email or through mail?
Yeah, you can either get it through email, you can get it through quick text messages. Just contact your cash buyer and just say, can I get a quick receipt, for whether you sent it as a check or however you did it, and yeah,
Oh,
you just go
all
from there.
right, all right.
I think somebody else had a question too.
yeah. When you when you sign these contracts, do you usually put your mother's name and yours?
No, just my mother's name.
And the only thing that is connected, like the only thing that she is, I guess, responsible for is that she's over the 18. Like, there's nothing else tied to this,
Exactly. Exactly.
for sure.
This has nothing to do with the class, but I would like to know how long ago did you start doing this since you are only 16?
Right. So I was working with the team. I kind of left the team just because of backstabbing reasons. But yeah, I was working with the team for about a whole year. Really trying to get as much knowledge as possible. Unfortunately, a couple things happen when working. That's why working with somebody else. It's always important. Make sure that if you do plan on going into this working as a team with somebody, or anything like that, you make sure you're working with somebody you trust. But I was doing this for about a year. Turns out I was first of all, that I had been taught completely, out of the way it should have been, and not only that, when it came to closing cuts and at the end for how much we had made and all that, I didn't get what I should have, what I was promised essentially, and so it kind of it was a lose lose for everybody. The business went down, and I kind of had lost what I was doing, but nonetheless, I didn't let myself go, and I really educated myself on the way this should be done correctly, and I've now been, successfully wholesaling now for about about 5 months now. Closing off the year with about 5 months, and to answer your, well, yeah, there that goes to answer your question. So I would say, really been in the whole real estate for about 2 years now, but really understanding everything for about a year now, about a year.
Okay, because I feel like because I'm a lot older. Well, I'm 20, but I'm like, oh wow, he's 16. Like it's amazing
Right.
what you're doing.
Thank
So
you. And so the way I kind of put that is it's no difference. When it comes to age, I know it's gonna sound kind of cliche, but age really is a number, just depending on when you find things and the way that things kind of come to you. Obviously, there's boundaries to certain things, but for stuff like this, whether you're me 16 or somebody, one of you guys at 40, whatever it may be, it's just a matter of when I found what I'm doing, and that I went ahead and took action. All it is taking action. So again, whether you're my age or you're 40, all it is just taking action. And yeah.
would you say that me surrounding myself with other people that are still like in real estate, but not necessarily like wholesalers, like me surrounding myself with just real estate agents and like realtors and everything like that would be like good?
Definitely. And the reason why is because, real quick, guys, in this life, well, I'm only 16, so who am I to give advice, right? But from what I know is definitely relationships are what's either going to make it or break it. The more relationships you have, the more, um I guess I could say, the more successful you're going to be overall in your whole lifetime. And that's just kind of the rule of thumb. The more people you know, the more you have access to. So definitely, getting, if you could be in contact with agents and with people within the real estate market in general. You're gonna have, people to kind of reflect on, talk to, even after this month is over. Say you make connections with some kind of realtor, and you have some kind of a question because you're talking to a realtor, for a wholesale, for an assignment. You have someone to talk to there, that does, not wholesaling, but they're a realtor type of thing. So definitely, build connections with different people throughout the whole business, throughout the whole industry, and that should be nothing but positive gains on your end.
What is the most that you have invested in real estate, like seminars or stuff like that?
I actually never ever bought a class, or I never ever bought. Um, I'm always straightforward about that. Is that all the information that I'm teaching you guys and all the information you will learn on other people, definitely can be found through YouTube, and it's something I say openly, and it's something I say open willingly. The reason is because I was able to do it, and you guys would definitely be able to do it. However, just on what I taught you guys today, you saved good, I'd say about a good half a year to a full year, depending on who you are, of YouTube videos and searching, because there's not one YouTube video that just kind of puts it all together the way I kind of did it here. It's all separate videos. It's separate here. Sometimes they don't upload it. So this is, definitely saved you guys about a half a year to a year worth of YouTube videos and stuff like that.
Yes, because I have been watching a lot of videos, but like I watched King. That's his name, right? King, I think.
Kong, I think his name is.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I watch his videos on YouTube, but I never, because obviously he doesn't really have like, he does have some basics, but not necessarily everything he taught in this class. So I thought it was really, really cheap. I was like $100, that's nothing. And I was like, I didn't hesitate to join this class. So
Right. So and the way my prices kind of came, well, it's just in the beginning. If you look back at my old TikTok, is what I should say, my old TikTok videos. It's just actually real quick before I move on to that question to answering it. This was pretty much wholesaling A through Z. This is what wholesaling is, and if you have no more questions, you're more than welcome to leave. Like I said, you guys will all get my contracts. You guys will all have links to that by tonight. Video, or excuse me, link to this video as well. So yeah, if you have no more questions, you're free to go. If you just kind of want to stay along for the questions or ask me more questions, definitely now would be the time to do so. I'll be here for about another 20 minutes just answering questions, or less, just depending on the questions you guys have. But yeah, so my bad. What was your question one more time?
I forgot.
I forgot to.
Real quick, should we expect all of this through like Instagram
Yeah, so
DMs?
I'll go ahead and make a big group chat with all of us in it, and I'll go ahead and add you to it. Obviously, I'll add everybody in this Zoom to it, and I'll go ahead and send you guys all contract links, all that.
For sure. I also have one more question. So since you are putting your mother's name as the contract or on the contract, and you're calling up the buyer and or like the owner as yourself, has that ever been like kind of sketchy? Like, are they like, why is this why is this contract coming to me in another name, but I just talked to this guy? You know what I mean?
Right. So actually, that was a big problem that I had, and a big worry, and something, again, one of those things where you have nobody to ask, like, how that kind of whole plays out. And it's gonna be kind of ironic, but literally all you do is tell them that it's a partner you're working with, and from there, I mean, it's a partner. It could be he or she, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's your partner. So that's all I say is, oh yeah, it's under the business under my partner's name, but we both kind of run it together. That's kind of the way things go. And I've never had a problem after discussing that, letting them know, because sometimes they are curious. Not that it's a problem; it's just that they're curious on what's going on, and I just let them know that's my partner. And after that, I'm problem free from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you ever taken the real estate exam, like the test and everything, or no?
I actually have not. No. I've really only been, when it comes to real estate. I know. I mean, I know the basics on becoming a realtor and all that. The school. I personally don't have anybody in my family that's ever done real estate, so I never really had nobody to ask either. But to answer your question, no, I've never taken that specific test. However, I do plan on getting my license as soon as I turn 18. So definitely something I will be seeing here in the near future.
When you said Facebook markets, do you mean like Facebook group chats?
Market groups, yeah. My bad. I probably said marketplace or something, but yeah, it's the Facebook group chats.
For sure. And then, like, what are the like in your like situations? What are the chances um, of like finding a buyer within the inspection time? Like, has it always like, is it a 90% or like,
I'm sorry, me finding what?
like the chances of you finding a buyer within the inspection period?
Oh well,
Like, is it almost all the time you find a buyer within?
yeah. So pretty much just depending on again, it just depends on the market that you're in and knowing the people and knowing who to talk to. Definitely when I was starting off, only doing about 1 to 2 properties a month. Definitely now escalated and plan on escalating even more next year. But yeah, it's really just about building connections and knowing who to talk to be able to do that. But yeah.
Cool. And just one more. If they are not a motivated seller, would you just like bounce?
No, I mean, if I talk to them, I'm not gonna ask them, "Hey, are you a motivated seller?" But I will talk to them and let them know kind of what the whole deal is, that I'm again interested in the property and all that. If I mean, you could kind of tell off the tone of somebody if they say, "Well, I mean, yeah," or they're just kind of straightforward and kind of blink. Then they might not be as motivated. But if they start kind of wanting to become your friend a little bit, sell you their property, that's kind of when you grasp it, especially when and you can hear the tone in the voice when somebody gets overly excited that they're calling about their property. Those are kind of things you want to see and hear for, is their tone of voice and stuff like that. You can definitely see right away when it's coming to be that somebody is a motivated seller. It's very easy to see. um yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question real quick too, you guys. I have not took that real estate test and whatnot, but I have taken a couple classes on how to read people, believe it or not. And the reason why is because that has a lot to do with how you interact with people and how what to say to people to really lock in deals. And that would literally be a whole nother class for a whole nother time. But yeah, definitely again, on YouTube, go on YouTube and just search up classes on how to talk to people and how to, if you're not as outgoing, I guess I could say, how to talk to people, or how to how to go, yeah, just how to go about talking to people will definitely, it will definitely help you in this business at least.
Is there any books that you have read to, like, gain more
Right.
knowledge?
So not on real estate exactly. I haven't read a book that's just directly given towards to real estate. But if I had to recommend any books, I actually have them here on my counter. It would be Rich Dad Poor Dad and Outliers would be the two books. If you have not read them, I recommend you
By
read them.
Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, I'm reading right now one of his books.
Yeah.
I have that one, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I cannot find it. So
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, those would be the two that I would recommend. Both, or excuse me, Robert Kiyosaki is on Rich Dad Poor Dad, and Malcolm Gladwell on For Outliers. Both really good books, really good authors. Recommend those two books.
Sammy, could you give us an example on what you what you say when it comes time to giving your offer?
Right. So it really just kind of comes out of the conversation, and it has to kind of just do with the way you introduce it, and it's all going to affect and go into play. Really, I kind of it just, it depends on how the conversation ends. If everything's ending off on a good note, it's just going to be hey, yeah, so talking about numbers, I think 80,000 would be where I would be at, and that'd be my offer at 80,000. There's not a selective way or a specific way that I would say, hey, my offer is 80,000. Besides just simply doing it, just say your offer is 80,000, whichever way that has to come in, whether it has to come in the beginning of the, or excuse me, towards the middle of the call, towards the end of the call, whenever it has to be. It's just a matter that you give out your number before that phone call ends. I know that Kong likes to teach, give it some time and then come back. Me personally, I don't.
Yeah,
um, and you can talk to any of my classes. I let them all know the same thing, is that you can definitely do it. Kong is teaching it, but I don't recommend you do that. Just because it runs the risk of, for whatever reason possible, that you can lose this caller. It just runs the risk of losing it. Whether that's be within the time that you're fake thinking about talking to somebody, or thinking about numbers. Somebody could either come in and scoop up the property. Just, it's happened before, based off the right price is always going to get the property in the contract. So I don't even risk it when it comes to them not even answering my phone call or calling me back. I just don't risk it and just kind of give an offer on that same phone call. But like I said, I know Conk teaches a different way. If that's the way you want to go about it, definitely do so. But I would highly not recommend it.
For sure. And in all your cases, the transferring between contracts has always been email.
Yeah, it's always been through email. Yes.
For sure. Okay. Okay.
I have a question. Um, what was it? How long does it typically take? Let's say you close the contract and everything goes fine. How long does it typically take for that check to come in for you?
The check typically that's kind of like the easiest part and the slow, or excuse me, the less time I guess possible. When you're waiting for that first check, it feels like forever, but typically about 2 to 3 days, 4 days, just depending on, actually depending on a lot of factors: where you live, what title company you used, whether you can just go pick up the check or it's gonna have to be mailed to you. But if it's a mail check, I've never waited more than a week for my check to come in. So
Oh, all right, then thank you. That's all.
yeah. All right, you guys. Like I said, if I'll go ahead and get to you right now, boss. But if you guys don't have any more questions, you guys, like I said, go ahead, more than free to go. If you want to stay, we got about 10. I'll be on here for about 10 more minutes answering questions. And yeah, somebody had a question real quick.
Yeah, so like when we fill out the contracts and everything, like just out of curiosity, like can we just have the attorney like double check the contract and see like if everything's right?
Oh yeah,
Like
you could.
the title company?
If you feel like that's where you want to go, the route you want to go, you could definitely do that. Remember, you guys have me as a mentor for months. You can go ahead and
Okay.
send me the contract, and I can just go ahead and kind of look it over real quick. But besides that, I mean, if you want to go down the route of talking to a title company for that, I definitely recommend you do so. If that'll give you the peace of mind.
Okay. And what's the like the typical cost of it, like of a turn of a title company?
The cost,
Yeah.
you don't pay anything. The buyer does. The buyer pays all the fees.
Okay, the buyer pays it. All right, cool, cool. And if the seller backs out of any for any reason, like you don't lose anything.
Right. So I mean, well, here's a couple things I want you to understand. That way you don't kind of have the wrong mindset. Typically the seller wouldn't want to back out of the contract. If you think about it, if it's a motivated seller, they're selling for some kind of reason. And so, I wouldn't see why the seller would want to back out. However, if the cash buyer cancels, then yeah, you don't lose anything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Would you recommend wholesaling in California?
I don't. I'm actually in California, and I have never wholesaled in California just because the prices are so expensive. You won't necessarily find a property for good enough to wholesale at least.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is Reno, Nevada, or Carson a good place to wholesale?
Nevada would be a good. The desert states in general are all pretty. They're all pretty tricky in the fact that they're tough markets to start off in, especially not knowing again nobody or nothing like that. Just because they are very competitive and there's a bunch of people wholesaling in those markets. However, definitely good. Desert states is a good place to wholesale in general. I would recommend it to start though,
What
just because of how heavy the market is.
would Chicago be a good place?
I actually believe it's illegal in Illinois to wholesale.
That was going to be my question. If it's like illegal or if you need a license in any other states.
Yeah, so I believe you would need a license in Illinois and Texas, possibly Philadelphia here in the next coming months.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, guys, I'm pretty much here just answering you guys' questions for a couple more minutes. Actually, while we're answering questions stuff like that, let me get all the contracts ready for you and all that.
So you said we'll have your mentorship for like another.
Right. So I'll go ahead and give you guys my personal phone number in that group chat. You guys, I know that if you guys have ever tried texting me on Instagram or something like that, I do this thing where I'll open them and read them just so you guys know I'm reading them. Kind of a heads up. Don't think I'm ever ignoring you guys. If I ever open your message to read it, it's literally to read it. That way you know I read it. Then I'm gonna get back to it later. But yeah, I get so over flooded that I can't even answer DMs at times. But yeah, so all you guys will have my personal phone number, and you guys can go ahead about contacting me there, and I'm pretty much on my phone, 28 8, so or 25 8. So yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question on that mentorship.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, like I said, I think I'll go ahead and start getting these contracts ready. Again, if you have any contact, or excuse me, any questions, definitely go ahead and contact me. I recommend if you guys could, just anywhere from 12 to 5 Pacific Standard Time. That's just kind of the times that I'm really up and running the most of the time. The reason I kind of cut it off at 5 is because 5 is when title companies close on the West Coast. They're long, far close on the East Coast, and so yeah, that's typically why I go ahead and margin those times. And same thing at 12 p.m. East Coast time. I believe it's probably around 3 o'clock. So it's still, we're all still in the same category of getting to your messages and stuff on time. So yeah, guys, if you guys could around 12 to 5 o'clock, message me. You guys again will have you guys will have all this within either by tonight or tomorrow morning. The reason I say that is because just depending on these are large 2 hour long files. So depending on the way that I have to send it, whether that be uploading on YouTube per private link, just kind of figuring all that. So definitely this will either be out by tonight or tomorrow morning. And yeah, along with all the contracts and scripts and things of that sort.
Okay. One more question. You said you do not recommend in Nevada, right?
Right. Yeah. And the only reason I don't recommend it, not because it's not a good state to wholesale, just because the market's so oversaturated. Meaning there's just a bunch of people wholesaling and buying properties there in Nevada right now.
All right, then. Thank you. Where do you really think you should? Where do you recommend we should start?
There's what I like to say. I mean, there's not a place that I would recommend to start. Really, wherever there's a business to be made, business will be done. That's kind of again my key motto. But definitely recommend. As you saw, I'm in Oklahoma, so I would recommend Oklahoma. I wouldn't recommend something that I wouldn't do. So Oklahoma would be where I would be at. Kansas. Kansas is a hit or miss just because of the crime rate. Depending on where in Kansas, if you're in Kansas City, you probably don't have such a high chance of wholesaling. Maybe in the outskirts, you might have a little bit more of a chance in Kansas City. But I would certainly stay with Oklahoma. As of right now, they have a shortage of listings. Not meaning that there aren't any. We clearly found some. However, they're just at a shorting. Once this year starts, though, people start getting evicted. Things like that start to happen. Unfortunately, it starts to pick up a little bit. In all of these states. But to answer your question, though, Oklahoma, Kansas, kind of the middle western states. Tennessee, Alabama, those states. But yeah, guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and start working on getting the video to you guys as well as these contracts and scripts. If anybody has any, kind of a final question, I'll go ahead and answer it. Besides that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and just leave for some reason, not that many people joined this call. First of all, it was only about 10 of you guys in total. But it is what it is. Everybody else will get this pre-recorded, so that's kind of on them. But yeah, guys, you guys all have my mentorship for the whole month. I will leave a poll on my Instagram if you wouldn't mind just filling it out. It's just kind of the way that really maybe some of you guys were able to pull the trigger was based off of those reviews. But yeah, so if you guys could do the same thing, leave a good review, or if leave an honest review if you didn't like the class, so be it. That's just what it is. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure teaching you guys, and I can't wait to see where all of you guys come out to be and to succeed. Really, I want to see all you guys get your first deal under contract pretty soon here. And yeah, guys, let's go make some money.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
No
All
problem.
right, thanks.
No problem, guys. Have a good one.